Happy Tuesday, friends. This is Neil Adler with another episode of Syracuse Central on the Fan Arch Network. Hope everyone had a great Monday, starting the week off on the right note. We're going to do some Syracuse football today, and as always, thanks so much for tuning in, providing feedback. Hit that subscribe button if you feel so inclined. Appreciate you all. And yeah, I know the football season's a bummer. I do. I get it. And I know a lot of you want to just talk about basketball or recruiting, and I get that too. And we'll definitely be shifting more into basketball. But we still got I don't want to completely like just, throw in the towel on football. And I got recruiting stuff and look, the Miami game was, 38-10, six straight loss. Look, I'll credit Syracuse. They hung tough in the first half. It was 0-0 for much of the first half. They Miami scored a touchdown, and then there was a pick six. So it was 14-0 at halftime. They held Miami to, let me make sure I have it right here, 385 total yards. Now Miami was without their leading running back, so that played a factor. But they held Miami to 145 rushing yards. Miami was 3 of 9 on third down. So like the D, it wasn't great, but like the 38-10 score, I think is a little misleading about the defense because the offense doesn't do anything. So the defense just it's tired, it's run down. I mean, how else do you characterize it? If you don't have any offense and you don't sustain drives, then that just puts so much pressure on the defense. And I'm not saying the defense is great, but there's certainly times where there's been some nice plays, and there's definitely talent, and we'll get to one of the defensive guys in the next segment. But I mean, the quarterback play is not good, and I never personally attack a young man or a young person, a college athlete, because him or her, they're trying their best, but Ricky Collins just isn't it. How else do you put it? He is just not it, and I'm not going to say he can't be a division or an FBS quarterback somewhere, maybe more like a mid-major. Like he's not ready. He was 12 of 25 for 85 yards, two picks. I think on the year he was sacked 6 times, and that's definitely an issue with the offensive line too. But I think on the year, Collins I think he came into this game with 6 touchdowns and 8 picks, so now he's got 6 and 10. I mean, that's awful. I mean, how else do you say anything? And I wish him well, and I can't imagine that he's going to stick around because he's not going to. I don't see him being unless things change in the offseason, he's not going to be a significant contender for the starting job. Joe Filardi, the walk on, he came in. It's funny. People talk about, oh, he's a walk on and he's a lacrosse player, and this is embarrassing. Well, just keep in mind, like he doesn't need to be on scholarship for 2 sports. So he's on scholarship as a lacrosse player, but he was a really good quarterback in in high school for his program, I think, on Long Island. He threw for 40-something touchdowns and 3 picks his senior year. And I don't know the ins and outs of the competition he played, but it's kind of like Calvin Russell, who I'll mention later on. He's coming to Syracuse on a football scholarship, but he's expected or planning to. I haven't heard anything differently, that he's going to play for the basketball team. So just because he's a walk-on the basketball team doesn't mean he's not good. So anyway, I kind of rambled there, but Filardi, he came in, he was 3 of 3 for 39 yards. He threw a touchdown to Elijah Washington Baker. Okay, that's nice, but again, Syracuse had, where was it? I had it here somewhere. I think they had 120 something passing yards in total. Well, 85, 39, 124. I mean, and Miami has a good defense, but I mean, 124 yards passing. What are you going to do with that? They did have 161 yards on the ground. Willis had 67. Nixon had 61. Tyleik Hill, the freshman, had 8 carries for 48 yards. That's pretty good. 6 yards a carry. They have no offense. You can't win games. And Miami's offense has been struggling, but you can't win games, scoring 10 points. And during the 6-game losing streak, what's the most they've scored? I think it was SMU at SMU, 31-18, 18 points. 18 freaking points. nah, it's just not going to get it done. I mean, again, I'm not like crapping on my alma mater. I love my boys. I'll root for them no matter what. I'm not like, saying I'm not going to watch the game, but this season sucks. They're 3-7. They're not going to win at Notre Dame, obviously, unless something weird happens. Hopefully, they can beat BC to end up at 4-8. And I'll continue to maintain that even though the quarterback play has really struggled since Steve Angeli unfortunately went down, it's not just on the quarterback, but a lot of it is. And that's just the nature of the position. If you don't have a good quarterback, you ain't going to win games. I mean, that's not entirely true. Hey, listen, my hometown Baltimore Ravens, the first Super Bowl they won, was it 2000? Something like that. They didn't have great quarterback play. They had an insane defense. But, by and large, if you don't have at least a solid quarterback, you're not going to win games. You're not. I mean, it is what it is. So hopefully Steve Peanut Butter and Jelly comes back super, super healthy and strong for next year because they got a load of talent, a load of young talent. Okay. And Syracuse, by the way, is off this week. They have a bye coming up and then go to Notre Dame and then finish up on the 29th. Yeah. At home against BC in the regular season finale right after Thanksgiving. Okay. All right, so here's some good news. So I think Syracuse.com broke this. I don't know if it was Chris Carlson or one of the other good reporters there. Anyway, but so Demetrius Samuel Jr. said that he's coming back. Like it's, I mean, obviously you wait and see what happens, and if you you never know in sports, and especially in college sports with the transfer portal and now rev share and everything, NIL. But he said that he's already talked with Fran Brown and he's coming back. He says, I'm here. Here's a quote. Trying to build something. I think next year we got a lot of talent coming in. I feel like we're going to shock a lot of people next year. They do have a lot of talent coming in. And they have a lot of talent on this roster, and we'll see who transfers and who transfers in, who transfers out. But yeah, and their schedule isn't quite as brutal. But that's a key win for Syracuse. He has been a starting cornerback all season as a true freshman. He's 17. I think he's the second youngest player in the FBS. And let me look at the stats here. 42 total tackles, 32 solo tackles, 1 interception, 8 passes defended. He's up for I think it's the Sean Alexander Award, which is like given out annually to the top freshmen. He's a semifinalist. I assume he's going to be a freshman All-American, whether it's 24/7 Sports or ESPN or, some of the other media outlets or whatever. So, look, that's huge. That's huge. And I like the fact that he just got it out there and it's like, all right, let's just move on. Like sometimes these things linger or whatever, and I wouldn't expect a lot of players to say right now if they're coming back or not, but he's going to be a cornerstone of this program, for the next couple of years. And so him getting it out there that he's coming back and just kind of focus on his game now, like, cool, it's great. Definitely need guys like him coming back. There's a lot of good freshmen and underclassmen on this roster, and then the 2026 class, which we've talked about ad nauseum coming in, like that's great. That's super, 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 super great. Okay, so speaking of freshmen, so I'm sure some of you, if you're watching the game, might have noticed that Syracuse's 4 representatives for the coin toss, i.e. the captains for that game, were all freshmen. Demetrius Samuel Jr., cornerback / wide receiver. I didn't mention that in the earlier segment, although I think he's caught 1 pass this year. Linebacker Antoine Delaurier, offensive lineman Byron Washington, and wide receiver Darius Johnson. So, and Demetrius Samuel Jr. said that after the North Carolina game, Fran Brown told them they'd be captains. He said something that to the extent of, look, this is your team. This is your team now. And then Brown said after the Miami game, I think those guys are accountable. They compete all the time. Those are guys that people look up to. I don't really think it matters what grade they're in. It just matters their work ethic. And then he said later on, and it's worth noting, and I've talked about this on Syracuse Central, they had a huge prep class in 2025. I think they might have had the most prep recruits, or they were up there. And they definitely had more prep recruits and less transfers in 2025 versus 2024 when they brought in Kyle McCord and others. And it was also Fran Brown's first season, so he hadn't been through a recruiting cycle at the high school level. It was just a different kind of situation. And so Brown also said, we're building the program. I've been saying that since the beginning. I'm starting to think people aren't really trying to listen to me. He's funny. Yeah, I think it sends a message. And I don't look at it as he's saying, oh, like our seniors or upperclassmen aren't trying hard or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, certainly this season it's not a lost season, but this season is what it is. And so we're looking towards the future. The program's looking towards the future. I get it. And so, and then there were other guys that also got some run against Miami, and Darian Williams, who's from CBA in Syracuse. Dante Bastier, I believe, is also from CBA. Caleb Singleton. Yeah, I think it sends a really good message. And I don't know if if this was just a coincidence or not, but a couple of Syracuse's top verbal commits in the 2026 class were at the game because it was in Miami and they're from Miami. I'm sure people are like, oh, flip watch and all that crap, whatever. But Calvin Russell, the 2026 5-star wide receiver, Tadarius Hughes, the 4-star defensive back, they both play for Miami Northwestern Senior High School. Hughes flipped last week from Florida State to Syracuse. And then 4-star edge, Cameron Wilson. These guys are all in the 2026 class. And Wilson goes to Miami Southridge. So, people have talked all along about Calvin Russell potentially flipping to Miami because he's been to some games this year. But keep in mind, he literally is from Miami. And one of his best friends, Malachi Tony, plays on Miami. And who was it that I saw a good quote? Where is it? Let me see it here. So, Darius Johnson, who is also from Miami Northwestern Senior High School. Where's the quote? Sorry, I had it here. He said that he is, he talks to Calvin regularly. He talks to Hughes regularly. They all, again, are Miami Northwestern Senior High School guys. And they talk about, life and all that because they're friends, but then they talk about playing for Syracuse, and they say one of the biggest selling points, opportunity for them to play quickly. And Fran Brown is obviously sending that message with, 4 game captains against Miami being freshmen. And then Johnson said he's confident they're going to all keep their commitments. When asked if there's any concerns about Russell flipping, even though he did take an official visit to Syracuse not too long ago, Johnson said, here's a quote, "Tell Syracuse fans to chill." So look, I guess something could happen. The early signing period is coming up next month, a couple weeks actually. So chill, Syracuse fans. But I just, again, to reiterate, I like the message that Fran is sending. Now, we certainly need veteran players to serve as leaders of any type of sports team, in my opinion. It can't just always all be freshmen. But some of these freshmen, like Dimitri Samuel Jr. and some of the others, they've played a lot this year. So, it's not like, what I'm saying? He's not a veteran of the team, so to speak, but he's going to be a freshman All-American probably. And again, I think it sends the message to recruits as well that, hey, listen, Fran Brown is totally cool with playing underclassmen. It's, whoever's fighting hardest and giving the most effort, and obviously the results on the field matter too, but I'm totally good with it. And I think it was cool that he had those 4 guys as captains with those 3 recruits in the stands, verbal commits in the stands. So I will say it till I'm blue in the face or orange in the face. Calvin Russell, as far as I can tell, is not flipping. So he's locked in. But the signing period can't get here soon enough. It's sometime next month. I don't remember the exact dates. Okay. Anyway, let's move on here. And we're going to wrap up with just like a little look at the ACC. And again, I know we're like all bummed about this season, and Syracuse obviously is in the ACC race, but the ACC is weird this year. It's just weird. Like, who the heck is going to win it? Like, 2 of the teams we thought maybe were going to be the leaders at the beginning of the season, Florida State and Clemson played. And Clemson won, and they're both 4-5. They stink. But, you know, UVA didn't have a conference loss. They lost to Wake Forest this past weekend. Louisville had 1 ACC loss. They lost to Cal. I think Georgia Tech was idle. Duke lost to UConn, but that was a non-conference game. So teams with an SMU, you know, I think they beat BC, which isn't saying much, but they keep winning. So 1-loss teams in the ACC, it looks like there's 5 of them: Georgia Tech, Virginia, Pitt, SMU, and Duke. And then 2-loss teams are Louisville and Miami in the conference. So who's gonna win this freaking? Who's gonna win it? I think I said this last week on Syracuse Central. I mean, it's a one big league, right? I mean, you know, in terms of the college football playoff rankings, I think come out Tuesday night. So tonight. But they have 5 ranked teams in the latest AP poll, but none of them are higher than 14th. Georgia Tech 14, Miami 16, Louisville 19, UVA 20, Pitt 23. And then this week, as I mentioned, Syracuse has a bye. Clemson's at Louisville. It's some of the key games. Clemson at Louisville, Pitt hosts Notre Dame, Virginia's at Duke. One of those teams will have 2 ACC losses afterwards. Georgia Tech's at BC. You would assume Georgia Tech will win. And then NC State comes to Miami. So, yeah, I mean, there's a couple weeks left in the season. 3 weeks left? Syracuse has 2 games, but 3 weeks left. Who do I think is the best team in the ACC? I honestly don't know. I mean, SMU is playing well right now. They have 3 losses overall because they lost 2 in the non-conference. Pitt, I mean, they have a true freshman starting quarterback, but they keep winning games. Virginia, they had always, I feel like, were playing with fire because they always had a lot of close games and it kind of caught up to them. But they only have 1 loss in the ACC, and if they beat, they went on the road to Duke. I mean, that's, you know, but I'd still probably, if I had to pick the team that's going to end up winning the ACC, I'd probably pick Georgia Tech. I don't know. But none of them really, like, blow my socks off. You know, like, I mean, they have 5 ranked teams, but... And I don't think Miami can even get to the ACC championship game unless... Well, they have to obviously win out, but they need help, too, because they already have 2 losses. So, you know... We'll see how it all shakes out, but the ACC, I feel like it's definitely, most likely going to be a 1-bid team to the college football playoff. All right, that's going to do it for today's edition of Syracuse Central on the Fan Arch Network. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. I'm going to get definitely more into basketball and keep tabs on recruiting in both sports later this week. Thanks so much for tuning in. I really appreciate your support. Hit that subscribe button if you feel so inclined. And I will talk to you again on Hump Day. Take care, friends.